Peace and blessings, family. Peace and blessings, brothers and sisters. Welcome to another G.O.C.C. Fit live stream here for the Gathering of Christ Church, where we discuss all things health, fitness, and nutrition related. I am your host, your neighborhood and brother, certified personal trainer, certified nutritionist, and certified health coach, Rawchaa, here to hopefully be able to shed some light when it comes to all things in regards to our health with our G.O.C.C. Fit live stream series. Let me go ahead and get the scripture for our live stream. Pull it up for you all here. We're in the King James Apocrypha, the book of Sirach. Some may know as Ecclesiasticus. Sirach chapter 30, verse 15, where it reads, "Health and good estate of body are above all gold, and a strong body above infinite wealth." So here we see in the Bible how much the emphasis is put on our health being more valuable than any type of worldly possession that you could, as far as resource is concerned, that you can attain. Any type of money, any type of gold, any type of riches. Nothing is more important than our health, because what good does all that money do if you don't have good health? And let me go ahead and get our title for our topic of discussion for this live stream. Our title and topic of discussion is linoleic acid, the most dangerous ingredient in our food. Linoleic acid, the most dangerous ingredient in our food. And of course, it is a question. So we are asking a question on whether or not that is the case. Now, for some of you, you may not know what linoleic acid is. So we're going to get the understanding of what is first linoleic acid, so we understand what it is to be able to identify whether or not it is the most dangerous ingredient in our food. And then once we have identified what linoleic acid is, we will then go into the information and let you, brothers and sisters, make your own determination on if it is the most dangerous ingredient in our food, as well as allowing you to do your own research and come to your own conclusions when it comes to this particular ingredient. All right. And so here a little bit earlier than normal. Typically we don't come on to about 7 p.m. Central Standard Time, but because we are coming into the weekend for the Feast of Tabernacles. The Feast of Tabernacles starting tomorrow evening, sundown. But I do know a lot of people, because we are coming into the weekly Sabbath, Friday night, sundown. They go ahead and make way to the campgrounds and get started with their celebrating of the Feast of Tabernacles and preparations. And then maybe some are just getting ready for the Sabbath. Maybe you aren't have the tabernacles preparations happening right now, but you are nonetheless getting ready for the weekly Sabbath and preparation. So for those that celebrate it and that follow our church, that according to the calendar, the Enoch True Biblical Calendar that we have, just wanted to make sure that we came on. I was prepared and ready to come on. We come on early, get started. And then that way I myself can get back to my preparations, and you as well. And I'm sure some people are probably out and may not get a chance to be able to check us out live. They may have to come back and follow up later. But nonetheless, this was a very important conversation that has been needed to be had for quite some time now, and I didn't want to delay. There was an opportunity, a window of time where I could come and spend a couple hours talking about this very serious conversation, especially when you talk about something being an ingredient in our food. And then I, in quotations, put food, because we then have to ask ourselves the question: is that what we're eating actually food? And we'll deal with that here in a moment also. So this might end up being the most important video up until this time, and I know we've said that here, probably the last few times that we broadcasted, just because the information, as we continue to go deeper down the road here on this information, it gets more serious as the as we go below the surface and dig deep, dig and dive deep into it. All right, especially when we're talking about the most dangerous. Right, so we're going to go into all the introductory information on this topic, and this is a conversation that we may have to do a series of parts on, just because it's that much information that needs to be shared just on this particular topic. When we talk about linoleic acid, it's that serious. So we'll see. But nonetheless, I at least wanted to start somewhere, and that way brothers and sisters can, evaluate the information, do their own research, and evaluate their diets, just to see whether or not this could be definitely something that's detrimentally in their diet that could be either causing, current health issues, or it could be building up and leading to health issues down the road. All right, so let me go ahead. Typically, we don't show too many videos when we do our health G.O.C.C. Fit live streams, but have a couple that I want to share. And we usually don't start with a video, but I'm going to start here with one. Let me pull my screen up so you all can see it here. One moment, let me pull it up. So as you can see here on my screen, it says, why is vegetable oil in everything? The history and corruption behind processed oils. All right, so I'm going to say fair use here. Fair use. This is for educational and religious purposes only. So we do have the right to be able to share this information. This is an actual YouTube channel, and it is uploaded on their platform. So we should, if it's fine for it to be on their platform, it should be fine for us to be able to fair use and educate based upon this YouTube video here. So let me go ahead and bring this up for you all, and let's check it out.
What was garbage in 1860 was fertilizer in 1870, cattle feed in 1880, and table food and many other things else in 1890. Before the 1890s, Western society only consumed animal fat. Tallow, suet, lard, and butter are all examples of these fats. Eastern societies use cold-pressed fats like coconut and palm oil. Vegetable oils like we know them today simply did not exist. The Industrial Revolution brought a rise in machinery, which required oil to run. At first, whale oil was the main fuel for these new machines, but as the whale population dwindled, the need for these oils continued to rise. Society needed another fuel, and that became cottonseed oil. It made sense. Cotton production was increasing by the year, and there was nothing to do with the seeds that came along with the plant. Now the scraps could finally be put to use. However, when fossil fuels were discovered, the need for cottonseed oil to power machines went away. The cotton seeds became useless again. Procter & Gamble, originally a soap-making company, used the newly invented hydrogenation process and once again found a use for the cotton seeds. They originally used coconut and palm oil to make their soaps, but switched to the cheaper cotton seeds when they had the opportunity. Then they realized that the soap resembled lard and figured that they could sell it as a substitute. This is where Crisco was born, the first vegetable oil. They vigorously marketed their product through various campaigns. One of their campaigns focused on the liberation of women who would no longer have to churn butter, and the liberation of animals who were no longer necessary for oil. They also got the message into the minds of consumers by claiming that it was the new product on the block. Another marketing strategy they used was free cookbooks, which listed Crisco as the base oil in every recipe. It was the cool new product that was cheaper than butter, but supposedly just as elegant. As it became evident that these once useless seeds could be made into food, other products containing them emerged. One of the most successful was margarine, first made with coconut oil and lard, but then made strictly with seed oils. Procter & Gamble then switched to soybean oil because it was even cheaper than cottonseed oil. Margarine and Crisco were the first vegetable oils to enter the market. As their popularity grew and it became easier to stabilize these oils, other companies started to sell them as cooking oil. Animal fats and the original Eastern vegetable oils contain mostly saturated fat. These so-called vegetable oils, which are actually seed oils, contain mostly polyunsaturated fats. For those wondering about the general manufacturing process of these oils, first, the seeds are gathered. Many of them are GMO, so they will have glyphosate residue on them, a pesticide and known carcinogen. They are then heated to extremely high temperatures, potentially leading to oxidation. This could be very problematic for your health, something we'll cover more in detail in the next video. They are then processed in a solvent like hexane, a chemical made from crude oil. They then deodorize the oil to get rid of the inherent rancid smells. Then more chemicals are added to give the oil a clearer color. The American Heart Association was launched in 1924, but few Americans had heart disease, so it was pretty irrelevant. Heart disease was actually very rare until the 1920s. Procter & Gamble paid the American Heart Association $1.5 million to promote Crisco as a healthy alternative to animal fats in 1948. It seems like this large investment paid off. Americans started associating saturated fats with heart failure when President Eisenhower had a heart attack and was out of office for 10 days in 1955. It helped gain awareness of the rising rates of cardiovascular disease, which the media associated with saturated fat. Eisenhower was also a heavy smoker, but that fact didn't seem to gather nearly as much attention. Saturated fats continued to be demonized when Ancel Keys, an American physiologist, published his diet heart hypothesis in 1958. Notice that it is only a hypothesis. He looked at 7 countries and found a positive correlation between fat consumption and heart disease. The problem is that he left out other countries that didn't fit his hypothesis. Cherry-picking data doesn't seem very scientific at all. In 1961, the American Heart Association wrote the first official recommendations to reduce intake of total fat, saturated fat, and cholesterol, and to increase intake of polyunsaturated fat. This advice was then used in the 1977 U.S. Dietary Guidelines. These cheap, industrial, heavily processed oils were marketed as health food, and their consumption continued to rise.
Sure, my family likes fast food chicken, but I like knowing exactly what they're eating. So when I can, I make the chicken they eat. With fast food chicken, you don't know what they fry it in.
At that point, animal fats had been disparaged, and the public perception of saturated fats was very negative. However, palm and coconut oil still had a small share of the market. The American Soy Association had successfully lobbied Congress in the 1930s to put taxes on these Asian-made oils, but they had to start aggressive slander campaigns when these oils were gaining popularity again in the 1980s. The irony is that people in Malaysia and the Philippines consumed massive amounts of palm and coconut oil, and heart disease was pretty much non-existent there. At the same time, Phil Sokolov, an American multimillionaire businessman, campaigned against saturated fats. He had suffered a heart attack and apparently wanted to protect Americans from cardiovascular disease. He led philanthropic efforts to eliminate saturated fats from the American diet. First, he contacted food conglomerates, and when they didn't respond, he put out hit pieces on them. He is credited for single-handedly driving McDonald's to switch from tallow to polyunsaturated fats. He also pushed numerous companies to move from saturated fat to polyunsaturated fat, and for people to drink skim milk. Sokolov later died from heart failure. I wonder how many people suffered the same fate because of his recommendations. The Center for Science in the Public Interest also gave the same advice. Maybe some of these activists, especially Sokolov, actually believed that saturated fats caused heart disease. They really just went off the government's guidelines, which were probably based on profit and not public health. Now, almost every single processed food you see will contain one of these low-quality polyunsaturated oils. Everything from chips to cookies to bread. Look at the labels on the foods in your pantry and you will see what I mean. Also, almost every single restaurant will use these oils to cook. Nina Teicholz explains some of the problems restaurants have with these oils in one of her talks.
He says ever since they've gone to these trans-free oils, they have been having these horrible cleaning problems. They understand them as cleaning problems because the fryers are getting clogged. Because the oils turn into polymers. When they go through all this heated, that long molecule I showed you becomes degraded and broken up, and it changes into other kinds of polymers, and that, like the polymers in paint, right? So they would clog up the drains, and they would have this gooey, sticky stuff on the walls, and they would try to scrape it off, and nobody could scrape it off, so they had to invent a new cleaner that was extra strong, that had sort of extra strength chemicals in it, that to use to try to depolymerize the stuff on the walls and in the drains and on the floors of all these fast food places. He said the polymers, these degraded molecules were so unstable that when they would put the uniforms in the backs of trucks to go take them to the cleaners, the uniforms would spontaneously combust. And then when they took them, they'd clean them and they put them in the dryers. There were still so many of these toxic chemicals in them that they would explode in the dryers. So I mean, just imagine we're just all putting this in our bodies.
Her book, The Big Fat Surprise, is an excellent source of information on this entire topic. Despite the facts, the most recent recommendations state individuals should aim to shift food choices from those high in saturated fats to those high in polyunsaturated and monounsaturated fats. By November 2013, the U.S. Food and Drug Administration finally removed partially hydrogenated oils from the list of human foods generally recognized as safe. It's good to know that the American Heart Association has been telling Americans to consume unsafe food for decades. When is this charade gonna end? The only way to avoid these garbage oils is to read labels, avoid restaurants that cook in these oils, and stay educated on the foods that you put into your body. Stay away from fats made from seeds or beans. Some safe plant oils would include olive, coconut, and avocado. These plants don't have to be chemically processed to obtain oil from. Your best bet is to cook your own food in saturated fat from one of these plants or an animal fat such as butter. Is it incompetence or malice? Tell us why in the comments below. Please share this video with anyone who still cooks in vegetable oil so they get a better understanding of how it got into their pantry. Then check out our next video.
Right. So very interesting information there, right? Just in our introduction, our introductory video for linoleic acid, the most dangerous ingredient in our food. It's a question. So we're going to look at, these very, very serious allegations and very serious information that was brought out in this video here. And let me see if I can pull it up here. I can find it real quick. And for those that remember, okay, we had our last G.O.C.C. fit, we had discussed all things macro fats. Right. So we touched on this topic a little bit, right? But we basically we have summed up the macronutrients, and previously to that we did the micronutrients, which are your vitamins and your minerals. Your macronutrients are your fats, your proteins, and your carbohydrates. So being that fats, we started with fats for our micronutrients, being one of the most misunderstood macronutrients in our diet, but yet one of the most important macronutrients. And when we hear the term fats, we think bad, okay? Because anything that has been associated with fat or being fat is looked at as bad. So therefore, if you talk about fats within our diet, you automatically think bad, let me stay away from that. But it couldn't be more, contrary. Could be more further than the truth that fats are actually, in my opinion, the most important macronutrient for what they do in the body. So many different things that they do when it comes to our body and our health. So if you did not catch this particular live stream we did, you can go ahead and it is here on G.O.C.C. Media. You can check it out. But now going from fats, from this particular past live stream, takes us now into our topic of discussion today. Linoleic acid, the most dangerous ingredient in our food, a question we are asking. A lot of things said in that video, right? We're gonna deal with a lot of those things here. But let us first define what is linoleic acid. Before we go any further, let us get at least the basic understanding of what it is. So we're going to go over here to our ISSA, International Sports Sciences Association textbook, Fitness Nutrition, first edition, revised February 2021. We have gone into this to discuss many, many things, primarily dealing with the macronutrients. And so now we're going to come down here to fats. Okay, because in order to deal with linoleic acid, we have to go under fats. For those who caught this live stream or are familiar with what linoleic acid is, then you would know we would need to come here. So let's get the base understanding of linoleic acid. So here we have it here. Linoleic acid. It says here, found in safflower, corn, and soybean oils, this polyunsaturated omega-6 fatty acid can help reduce adipose tissue deposits and improve immune function. Now we're gonna challenge this because this is just what has been taught universally, right? This is the universal or mainstream thing that they would tell us in our modern time. as far as when it comes to linoleic acid. A more recent, a more recent school of thought, then you would go back maybe 50 years ago and before, this was not what was actually the understanding and being taught. It says here, it is a vital role in cell membrane fluidity and structure as well as cell signaling. So when you come over here, it says linoleic acid is a common essential omega-6 fatty acid. Now, they're telling us here that it can help reduce adipose tissue deposits and improve immune function. And it has a vital role in cell membrane fluidity and structure as well as cell signaling. So what we're going to do is we have our good doctor here, Mercola, a article off his website. And he has a different school of thought when it comes to linoleic acid. What does he say here in his article? He tells us here it is the most destructive ingredient in your diet. Right? And he actually has a YouTube video here, I believe it's an hour and a half, where you can actually hear him speak about it and break it down, very thoroughly. We're not going to watch that for sake of time, but you will get this article and you will be able to watch that video on your own time. So it says here, story at a glance. It says, fats are the primary building blocks of your cell membranes. This is one of the reasons why eating the right types of fat is so important for your health and longevity. Okay, so again, we cannot stress the importance, okay, and vitalness of fats in our diet. All right, so we must first understand that part, and then after understanding how important fats are in our diet, now we must understand which fats to now include in our diet and which fats to then exclude, because there are good and bad. It says, while most nutritional experts blame the epidemic of chronic disease on the increase in sugar consumption, the role of sugar is relatively minor when compared to the impact of seed oils. Now, when we talk about seed oils, we're basically talking about what they would call vegetable oils, all the different oils that would fall underneath the category of seed oil. So I know many people have heard the detrimental health effects of the consumption of sugar, which is true. But the good doctor here is telling us that the detriments of seed oils to sugar pales in comparison, that seed oils far exceed the danger to our health that sugar causes, as destructive as sugar is. So that's a statement all in itself, right? It says here, there are two basic types of fatty acids based on how many of their carbon bonds are paired with hydrogen: saturated fats and unsaturated fats. Unsaturated fats are further subdivided into monounsaturated fats and polyunsaturated fats, depending on how many pairs of hydrogen atoms they are missing. So, of course, you have a lot of science here and, health terms and stuff. So we're going to get a little bit of that, but we're not going to go too deep. We're going to try to stick to the layman that vocabulary and discussion here so that, we can all understand and follow along. Okay. It says, because your tissues are made up of mostly saturated and monounsaturated fats, your body requires more of them than PUFAs. The main dietary PUFAs are omega-3 and omega-6 fats. And while your body does need these, it needs them in relatively small quantities. The most pernicious toxin in the modern diet and the fat you need to minimize consumption of is the omega-6 fat, linoleic acid, also known as LA for abbreviation. LA makes up to 60 to 80% of omega-6 fats and is the primary contributor to chronic disease. So that would pretty much contradict what we just read here in the ISSA textbook here. And this is the reason why you want to cross-reference to get, different understandings, because when you're looking in books, or even if you're looking at articles, or you're dealing with this doctor versus this doctor, there could be some things that are true and there could be bones. So we're going to challenge both sides to see which side is actually true, because the textbook here from ISSA is telling us that it improves immune function. Well, that sounds like a contradiction if Dr. McCullough is telling us that it is the primary contributor to chronic disease. So that right there is ambiguous, meaning that would contribute many, many things. We talk about chronic disease. There's many, many chronic diseases, not just one particular thing. So we're going to look at some of the data here. And then we're going to come back to the textbook to see if maybe the textbook might actually confirm some of the stuff that we're going to see here from Dr. McCullough. Even though there's a discrepancy, we'll see if there's some actual validation on both sides as well. It says here, fats, which are water insoluble biological molecules, also known as lipids, are the primary building block of your cell membranes. This is one of the reasons why eating the right types of fat is so important for your health and longevity. Well, after 3 grueling rounds of peer review over the last 3 months, my paper on the hazards of linoleic acid and omega-6 polyunsaturated fat is now published in the high-impact nutrition journal Nutrients and available for download here. So he actually has a peer review, 3 grueling rounds, peer review on this topic, where you can come here and download, where he's did the research, he's did the study, okay, right, with peers on this particular topic. So when you get this article, you can download this peer review and compare it with other research that you may come across when we're talking about this particular topic. All right. It says here, please download the article and save it on your hard drive, as you never know what will happen with our future crisis. You can send it to doctors who don't yet believe how dangerous seed oils are, but truthfully, the video above is likely better for your friends. I couldn't have done it without my co-author, Dr. Chris D. Adamo, who skillfully and diplomatically helped to navigate the minefield of peer review. So he did this with another doctor. So these are doctors here. And, we should consider all doctors and what all doctors have to say. It shouldn't be, well, we're only going to listen to the mainstream doctors, and then we're going to not deal with doctors who would not be considered mainstream, or the mainstream media would like to demonize certain doctors and tell you, oh, don't go listen to them because they have quack science, or they're witch doctors, or whatever the case. Well, let me go be the judge of that. I don't need you to be the judge of that and think for me. Okay. So we have to be careful of that, because a lot of doctors out here who are doing a lot of good, solid work are being demonized and blackballed for having an alternative view to what we have been told for so long that's now mainstream. And a lot of these things are more modern ideas and concepts. And, like I said, 50 years and before weren't necessarily the school of thought for those generations. So something changed, and what they're telling us now, they're saying is the right science, and what was before for thousands of years was wrong. And then we're going to see what the Bible has to say about this as well. Okay, to see, can we also confirm some of this in the Bible? Okay, I mean, it doesn't get much more history when the Bible goes back to the very beginning of mankind. So definitely the Bible would have some, you would think, if it would speak on a topic like this, that, it should be, not only heavily considered, but the authority on such matters, right? It says here, our next paper will likely be on reductive stress, which is one of the most important, foundational, and unknown concepts in health. It helps explain why LA is so devastating to your health at a molecular, biological level. Lowering your LA is the single most important strategy you can take to not only lower reductive stress in your mitochondria, but improve your overall health. Now, that's a very bold claim, because I know a lot of people have health issues, okay, and they're chronic health issues, chronic disease, and they're trying to figure out what's wrong, okay, and they're doing this and they're doing that, and they're not seeing any results. Well, according to Dr. McCullough, as well as others, it is the single most important strategy you can take. Now, that right there, if that is true, then how important is this information and conversation that we're having? Right? Because that would tell me that no matter what else you do, if you're not doing this, then that other stuff is going to be to little or no effect. Right? It says here, it took me over 6 months to create the video above, and I would strongly encourage each of you to watch it several times so you can embed in your brain how important avoiding LA is for your long-term health, so you can develop unconscious reflex behaviors to avoid this pernicious fat. Now, the video we opened up with, why is vegetable oil in everything, isn't Dr. McCullough, but he did add that video to this article here. Okay, so it is within this article. So we have, we have to look and see that this isn't the only doctor who's saying this, or this isn't the only person who has this understanding. There are many out there that have this understanding. However, this many would probably not be your mainstream voice. And so therefore they would be being drowned out. And so typically you wouldn't really have heard this for a lot of people. This might be the first time you're hearing some of this information. Okay, and you've been told other stuff, whether it be what's the most detrimental thing that for our health, or what's the most important fats we should be eating. So this goes against the grain, again, more modern times, but when we look in ancient times, it more so aligns. So let's go through some more information here on fats. It says fatty acid basics. What distinguishes one fat from another is the specific combination of fatty acids it's composed of. And the properties of fats and fatty acids depend on their hydrogen saturation and the length of their molecules, also referred to as chain length. There are two basic types of fatty acids based on how many of their carbon bonds are paired with hydrogen. Now, a lot of this we discussed again in our All Things Macro Fats, but this is just a refresher, right? So we can get the understanding of fats before we go into the deeper parts of this discussion. It says here, saturated fats are fully loaded with hydrogen atoms forming straight chains and are typically solid at room temperature. Examples include butter and coconut oil. So typically when you see butter and coconut oil, they're usually in a solid state at room temperature. You only see them become liquefied when they warm up and become hotter above room temperature. Okay, so that's a telltale sign of something that is more saturated than unsaturated. So it says here, unsaturated fats have lost at least one of the pairs of hydrogen atoms from their carbon chain and come into two varieties. They come into monounsaturated fats, which are missing one pair of hydrogen atoms, and polyunsaturated fats, or PUFAs, or PUFAs, which are missing more than one pair of hydrogen atoms, hence the name poly. The loss of hydrogen results in molecules that kink or bend at each double bond. The more hydrogen pairs that are missing, the more bent the molecules, which causes the molecules to occupy more space. This is what makes the fatty liquid oil at room temperature. In addition to varying levels of hydrogen saturation, fats also vary in length of their carbon chains, leading to another classification scheme based on their number of carbon atoms. So here it goes through the different number of carbon atoms for short chain, medium chain, long chain, and very long chain fatty acids, okay? The chain length and hydrogen saturation level control a fat's melting point. As chain length increases, melting point increases. Likewise, fats that are solid at room temperature, butter, coconut oil, have longer chain lengths than fats that are liquid at room temperature, fish oil, olive oil. With chain lengths being equal, the polyunsaturated fats found in seed oils have lower melting points than saturated fats. So now, omega-3 and omega-6 basics. This was the video we watched earlier. Right? It says here, PUFAs can also be subdivided into omega-3 and omega-6 fats. The end of the fatty acid chain that is opposite the acid end is the omega end. The location of the first double bond from the omega end dictates whether a fatty acid is an omega-3, omega-6, omega-9 oleic acid, or another member of the omega family. The most pernicious toxin in the modern diet and the fat you need to minimize consumption of is the omega-6 linoleic acid. It makes up 60 to 80% of omega-6 fats and is the primary contributor to chronic disease. To be clear, it's only toxic when consumed in excessive quantities, but the vast majority of people nowadays consuming far more than the ideal amounts. So basically, when you're eating your foods, stuff that is actually healthy and real food, it's going to be there, okay? It is found naturally in nature. However, the problem is when we get away from nature and we get into processing and ultra processing. And now once we have done this, now we're opening up the body to ingest something that the body was never meant to ingest, okay? We should be ingesting things that occur naturally in nature that God, the Most High God, has created. But when man now becomes involved, then now we have a problem, okay? It says here, the history of how seed oils ended up replacing far healthier animal fats is detailed in the video above. Many still believe that if you have a distorted omega-3 to omega-6 ratio, the solution is simply to consume more omega-3, but that's a serious mistake. So somebody may say, well, I'm getting a lot of omega-6 for whatever reason in my diet. So let me just focus on adding more omega-3. Well, that's not the solution, okay? That's not the solution. While you certainly need a certain amount of omega-3s for good health, adding excessive omega-3s is a prescription for disaster, as omega-3 is also a PUFA. All right. So omega-3 and omega-6 are both PUFAs, and you don't need a lot of them. But within that ratio, you have to lower the omega-6 with the foods you eat and bring the ratio where it's at a good ratio of omega-6 to omega-3. Now, within the natural diet, you don't have to worry about that. However, we're living in a processed society eating processed diets. So hence comes in disease and problems, right? So it says here, so when consumed in excess quantities, omega-3 will cause metabolic damage similar to that of LA as it breaks down into dangerous metabolites known as ALEs, advanced lipoxidation end products. Okay, commonly consumed fats, right? It says here, it is also important to highlight a primary plant-based omega-3 fat called alpha linoleic acid, ALA. ALA should not be confused with LA, as they are quite different from a biological standpoint. LA is an omega-6 fat, okay? And ALA is an omega-3 fat. Okay, so they're totally different fats. They're both PUFAs. Okay, so if you ever see alpha linoleic acid, then you would understand that it is the alpha. It is the better of the omega, because it is omega-3, than just regular LA. All right. Also, do not confuse LA with CLA, conjugated linoleic acid. Although CLA is an omega-6 fat, and most think CLA and LA are interchangeable, they're not. CLA has many potent health benefits and will not cause the problems that LA does. So maybe ISSA, when they talk about the benefits they have here for linoleic acid, maybe they mixed up they mixed up CLA for LA here. Okay, maybe there is some, and this is a 2021 textbook, so who knows now 3 years later if this isn't updated information. Okay, this was the earliest version of this textbook I could get, that I could get access to. All right, so it says here, the problem with PUFAs. As a general rule, vegetable and seed oils are high in PUFAs and low in saturated fats, while animal fats are the converse. Saturated and monounsaturated fats are more easily used by your body than PUFAs. Hence, animal fats are generally healthier than seed oils. What's the difference here? The difference is the animal fats are found naturally. So for instance, let's say you eat a steak and that steak has fat on it. Okay, that is natural fat that hasn't gone through a process. That's fats that have developed naturally within the animal. Versus vegetable and seed oils, you cannot get them by going out to a soybean and squeezing the soybean. Okay, it's not going to give you an oil. There's a serious process that has to happen. Dozens upon dozens of chemical processing has to happen before that soybean gives you an oil. So it's not natural, meaning the body was never supposed to consume that. And these are the things we have to be mindful of, not just within this discussion tonight with this particular ingredient, but all ingredients. What level of processing did it take to be presented to us for them to call it a food? Okay, because everything that they have presented to us as food is not food. In general speaking, the more processing a quote unquote food has undergone, the further we should run away from it. Okay. Foods have minimal processing. And we're going to speak more on that later. But just wanted to expound a little bit there. One significant problem with PUFAs is that they are chemically unstable, which makes them highly susceptible to being damaged by oxygen species generated from the energy production in your cells. So we saw this in the video we watched. Okay. Because of the high heat that's created, that's used to create this end product of these vegetable and seed oils, a lot of oxidation. And what you want is antioxidants in your food, not food that has been heavily oxidized. Because those foods that are heavily oxidized, then that is free radical. And those free radicals are going through your body causing destruction. Okay. Versus foods that are antioxidant are going through your body and actually neutralizing the free radicals. Right? It says here, because your tissues are made up of mostly of unsaturated and monounsaturated fats, your body also requires more of them than PUFAs. So that's common sense. Okay. If my body is mainly made up of something, then that would typically mean that I would need more of that than something that my body's not mainly made up of, right? The main dietary PUFAs are omega-3 and omega-6 fats. And while your body does need these, it needs them in relatively small quantities. Okay, so you shouldn't even be focusing in on obtaining omega-3 and omega-6 fats. The only thing you should be focusing on is what is the ratio, which we're going to talk about the ratios here a little later. You should only be focusing on, when I do get these fats, that the ratio is in balance, that it's not out of whack. Okay? It's not something to focus on. Because if you're eating a balanced, diverse diet, you're going to get them. And you're going to get them in the proper ratio. Right? It says here, one significant problem with PUFAs is that they are chemically unstable, which makes them highly susceptible to being damaged by oxygen species generated from the energy production in your cells. This damage causes them to form ALEs, which in turn generate dangerous free radicals that damage your cell membranes, mitochondria, proteins, and DNA. So these are all things within your cell. Your cell membranes is the outer portion of the cell. The mitochondria is like the brain. Okay, it's like the heart and the brain of the cell. It's the powerhouse. So it powers the cell. So if that gets damaged, imagine you having an engine in your car and your engine gets damaged. Your car is not going very far. Okay, not fast. All right. Also, proteins and DNA damages your DNA. So that is what allows your body to identify itself and pass that genetic sequencing on from you to your seed or your children. So if that's damaged, you now don't have the proper DNA to pass down, which then leads to issues with your children. What's worse, PUFAs are integrated into your cell membranes and can remain so for 5 to 7 years. Okay, so once they get in your body, it takes a long time for them to get out. So what is this telling us, just without even going any further? Well, you look at America. America has an obesity crisis. America has an overweight crisis. So if something is accumulating in your body and is not leaving, that means that as it accumulates, you expand. Okay, so now we're maybe starting to understand where the obesity and overweight is coming from. Okay, also, if this stuff is accumulating in your body and if it's toxic, what does that then do for your health? Well, that's going to then destroy my health. It's going to make me sick. And it's accumulating and it's not leaving. It says the missing hydrogen atoms also make PUFAs highly susceptible to oxidation, which causes the fat to break down into harmful metabolites such as oxaloms, which is oxidized LA metabolite. So not only is linoleic acid, so far being said to be the most dangerous thing in our diet, but imagine when it then becomes oxidized, because it's going through so much processing to get to this state to be able to present it to you. And this oxidation, now it's become oxidized. So now it's basically been put on steroids. All right. It's already bad for you. And then imagine injecting it with steroids. It's a whole nother beast now of destruction. It says, which have a profoundly negative impact on your health. So LA is not an essential fat. Essential fatty acids, EFAs, is a term referring to the PUFAs that scientists believe are crucial for health and that your body cannot produce. Hence, you have to get them from your diet. Currently, only 2 types of fats are considered essential: omega-3, EPA, DHA, and ALA, omega-6 fat, LA. The inclusion of LA is unfortunate. So this is what they tell us. Okay, this is what modern, mainstream health and science has told us, is that this is essential. Fats. Okay. And so Dr. McCullough is saying the inclusion of LA right here is unfortunate, as excessive amounts of LA actually wreck your cellular and mitochondrial function. The reality is you need very small amounts of LA, and because it's found in most foods, it's virtually impossible to become deficient. Okay, so again, if you're eating a diverse diet, you don't have to worry about focusing in on this because you're going to get it. But when you focus on it and then you make it the main thing that you look to have in your diet, or you don't know what it is and you're getting it, even more dangerous because you have no idea that you're eating it and that it's destroying you. Moreover, modern research has shown that up to 10 generations of animals can be raised without any LA in their diet whatsoever and remain perfectly healthy. How about that? That animals, 10 generations, can actually have linoleic acid totally removed from their diet and without it remain perfectly healthy, which means it's not essential. Now, animals and people are different, but typically most trials that they do when it comes to things, they start with animals first. Okay. So keep that in mind also, but that is interesting that animals, 10 generations, have gone without it totally, and it was like as if you wouldn't have noticed otherwise. Research has also shown that when you have a large amount of LA in your diet, an enzyme called delta desaturase, which converts the plant-based omega-3 fat ALA to the long-chain fats DHA and EPA, is inhibited. So consuming high amounts of LA increases your dependence on seafood as a source of preformed EPA and DHA. So now you have to then focus on increasing these particular fats when you have a large amount of LA in your diet, because it inhibits these two, which are important. This is important as DHA and EPA are indeed essential and provide a wide range of health benefits. One of the most important benefits of DHA is lowering inflammation, which is a factor in most chronic and degenerative disease. So typically when you look at most chronic and degenerative diseases, what do you find? Inflammation. So this is probably the biggest single factor that you should be looking at when it comes to chronic disease, chronic and degenerative disease and health issues, is what is your inflammation like? Well, LA inhibits DHA, which is there to prevent inflammation and to lower it. EPA, meanwhile, is important for heart and cardiovascular health. So imagine EPA being neutralized and your heart and cardiovascular system not getting what it needs for its health's sake. Now, we'll watch this video here at the very end. It says seed oils are the root of all chronic diseases. Very, very bold statement. And if it's true, right, what does that mean for us who are sick, who have health issues, and finding this information out that could be a game changer, that should be a game changer for our health, not only for those of us that may have those issues, but what about those of us that may not have those issues, but then having this in our diet, these seed oils or vegetable oils, interchangeable, could be setting us up for an early grave. Okay, setting us up for future chronic disease. Because when you're younger, your body can bounce back. Your body can fight stuff off. But as you age, And if you're getting this, your body's only going to be able to take so much before the dam breaks. Right? It says here, the video above reviews the health risk associated with vegetable oils and seed oils, which are found in most processed foods. It shows how chronic diseases such as heart disease began to skyrocket after the introduction of these oils in the market. Very interesting. We're going to look at some graphs here too. It shows how chronic diseases that were not very prevalent skyrocketed after these oils were introduced to the market. So we're going to see, is this a coincidence or is there something here more than meets the eye? Before 1866, the Western world, for the most part, only consumed animal fats, okay, because this process didn't exist. You could not in 1866 go to a market or a grocery store and get a big old $2 gallon jug of vegetable oil to cook your food in. Didn't exist. Well, what did they do? Tallow, suet, lard, and butter are example of these fats. So again, we are a Bible-believing church. We believe in the Levitical laws of clean and unclean animals. So of course, when it comes to foods or animals, should I say, like pigs, which would then give you your lard, we would abstain from. All right. However, and as bad as it may sound, when I'm looking at the information, and as bad as pigs are, and I don't even know, even to say this is weird, but it would be healthier to actually use lard from a pig to cook your food in than to use these seed oils. That's how bad, from my research, that is. We know what a pig is. Okay. That's how bad it is. But the reason being is that a pig was made by God and these seed oils were made by man. Okay. That's the difference. It says here, Eastern societies use cold-pressed fats like coconut and palm oil. Okay, so when you look into the East, we're in the West. This is very key to look to the East, okay? This is the reason why I said we're going to go into the Bible at the end of this. The Bible comes from the East. Okay, what were the cold-pressed fats they used? Coconut and palm oil. Okay, and when you look at their societies, they didn't have these diseases and issues going on. In 1866, in the West, there weren't these chronic diseases going on. Something changed. Now, the people in the East didn't change what they used for fats, and they remained fine. But something changed in the West to where now in the West, heralded as, the free world and the best healthcare system. Well, how can you have the best healthcare system and best food and diet, but be the sickest, most obese people in the world? That don't sound right. Something's wrong there. It says here, vegetable oils like we know them today simply did not exist. They didn't exist. The single greatest change to the human diet in all of history was the introduction of industrially processed seed oils around 1866. So it's interesting. Right after the so-called emancipation of the slaves in 1865, these seed oils were introduced. Right? Very, very, very interesting date there and year. At that time, Procter & Gamble used a newly invented hydrogenation process to convert surplus unusable cotton seeds into a synthetic seed oil sold to this day under the name Crisco. Oh yeah. Now for a lot of, older, those that are a little older can remember, maybe not so much used, you would see today, but you would have the containers, right, of a very silky, buttery looking substance, very creamy, called Crisco. And you would whip that thing out the container and throw it into the skillet, and you would cook that, you would fry that chicken up in that Crisco, right? Now they have it as it's not in a saturated state, it's more in an unsaturated state. When you see Crisco, it's in a liquid state. Not that they don't still have the container form, but most people, if they were to go and get Crisco, would be more probably familiar with the liquid state of Crisco. But back in the day, it was in the container, and we used that thing religiously. We would whip that Crisco out. I remember before the truth, and parents would throw that Spam in that Crisco. Man, you want to talk about some total destruction on your health. All right. Thank the Most High that we came out of that, starting with the pork. But now you can see how devastating, you throw that pork chop off in that Crisco. Can you imagine the destruction going on in your body, consuming that? But this is what Procter & Gamble, the same Procter & Gamble that has a lot of your so-called hygiene products that you would go and get, right? So shortly after that, margarine, which is made from seed oils, was introduced. In recent years, the company has largely converted to using palm, soy, and canola oil for its Crisco, but cottonseed oil is still very much in use for cooking, especially in restaurants for their fryers. So, cottonseed oil. We're going to talk about that. Cottonseed oil. Okay. Historically, we can see that seed oil use increased from approximately 2 grams per day in 1865 to 5 grams per day in 1909 to 18 grams a day in 1999. As of 2008, the average consumption was 29 grams a day. So look at that, right? Before this was put out there in 1866, it was 2 grams per day. So it's gone from 2 grams per day, 60 years later. It's gone from 2 grams to almost 30 grams a day. So we had a situation where chronic disease did not exist. We see something change. We see this change. Maybe there's something else that people can point to that could potentially be what it is, but we definitely see this as a prime suspect, right? In terms of percentages, seed oils accounted for approximately 1/100th of total calories in 1865 and increased to more than 1/4 of total calories by 2010, a 25-fold increase. 25-fold increase. And if this is actually a poison and is actually a toxin and is toxic to our health, the most dangerous ingredient in our diet, the root cause of all chronic and degenerative disease, how damning is this stat line here? 25-fold increase. If I wouldn't know any better, I would say this is true, that someone's trying to eliminate us. It says here, someone or someones, right, are trying to eliminate us. It says here, seed oils are far worse than sugar. While most nutritional experts blame the epidemic of chronic disease on the increase in sugar consumption, the role of sugar is relatively minor when compared to the impact of seed oils. In 1822, the average U.S. sugar consumption was 6 pounds per person per year. This rose to a high of 108 pounds per person per year by 1999. This is a 17-fold increase, but seed oils went up 25-fold during that same time period. So now we can then say, okay, well, maybe it's sugar. So we can then look at sugars increase during this time consumption, and we can also compare it with that of seed oils. Both go through a process, right? And so my question would, just before going into the information on it, which one undergoes more processing, right? Because whichever one is undergoing more processing and is actually employing chemicals within the process to generate you the product would be even more telling of which one is the more detrimental here. Not that it dismisses, right? But we'll see that here in a moment. In the 1960s and 70s, cardiologist Dr. Robert Atkins was largely responsible for creating the interest in low-carb, low-sugar diets that seemed to work for many. However, eliminating foods like French fries, potato chips, breads, pastas, pizza, and donuts not only eliminate sugar-based carbs, but also seed oils. Because all this stuff, so you can't just count the fact that this stuff is carbs. French fries, potato chips, breads, pasta, peanuts, donuts. Yeah, a lot of carbs, but what else? All this stuff is made with vegetable oil. Okay? It's all made with vegetable oil because it's cooked in it. So you have to count that factor in also. You're eliminating carbs, but you're also eliminating the seed oils that brought these processed ingredients to be. The French fries, of course, unless you bake them, but most of the time people are dumping them in the vegetable oil. It's not intuitively obvious, but the carb-loaded foods his diet eliminated are also loaded with dangerous refined seed oils. Processed foods typically contain about 21% sugar. However, up to 50% or more of the overall calories contained as most processed foods come from seed oils. So, we look at the calories here. So 21% of the calories of these products is sugar. But more than twice that, 50% of the calories from these products come from seed oils. Okay. The connection is further confirmed by looking at the U.S. carb consumption. It's been declining since 1997. Yet obesity and type 2 diabetes have steadily increased. Okay. So U.S. carbs has been going down since 1997, the consumption of them. Yet obesity and type 2 diabetes have increased. So those two aren't connected, aren't showing a connection. So what's causing this? Interestingly, this continued rise coincides with the surge of seed oil consumption. So as seed oil consumption continues to go up, obesity and type 2 diabetes continue to go up. Carbs going down, but yet obesity and type 2 diabetes have steadily increased. And here is a chart here. All right, I'm going to let you all look at this chart for a second. Sugar and vegetable oils consumption versus adult obesity. USA 1822 to to 2018. Let y'all look at that, and then we're going to break it down. So what do we have here? We have the year 1822 at the very far left of this graph. We have calories. How many calories? From 100 to 800 per day, right? In the orange, we have the line for sugar consumption. In the green, vegetable oil consumption. And in the blue, we have obesity. So let's take a look at this here, and let's see which two lines actually match. Okay, so as the calories per day go up, as the years go up, we see the lines all going in the same direction. However, right around 1978, we see carb or sugar consumption take a dip and start to go down or flatten out. Meanwhile, the vegetable oil consumption in 1978 is still going up. And as it continues to go up, what do we see here for obesity? Obesity spikes and jumps up. So if sugar was the more bigger cause here, right, then it would totally not make sense with this graph that sugar would show to go down and flatten out more, but yet the obesity would start to skyrocket around 1978. It takes a steep incline up to 1998. 20 years later, it went from 15% in 1978. For those of you all who were alive during this time, the 80s, the 90s, you could remember, people looked different. People looked different than how they look now. Not only just from obesity standpoint, but also just how they look, period. Right? They look more healthy than how people look now. But sugar started to flatten out and go down, and obesity spiked, and vegetable oil consumption continued to go up to where now you come to 2018 and vegetable oil consumption is at 40% and obesity is at 40%. They're both touching now, which would lead me to believe that the bigger culprit here when it comes to obesity is vegetable oil. Now that would explain why so many people have become in a state of being overweight in America, have become in a state of obesity, and are trying to figure out why I can't lose weight. I'm cutting back the sugar, I'm cutting back the carbs, but yet I'm still gaining the weight, or I'm still staying the same. I'm not losing the weight. But yet they're still cooking in the vegetable oil. They're still going and getting the foods that have the vegetable oil in them and not realizing that this stuff stays in your body and doesn't leave, which means it's accumulating. And if something is accumulating in something, that means it's expanding. It's filling up. In this case, the body is filling up and expanding out. Let's keep going here. We have another graph. U.S. seed oils and sugar versus diabetes and obesity. So now we're going to look at diabetes too, as well as obesity, from 1908 to 2016. Pretty much the same graph. Here's your calories. We have in blue diabetes percentage, red obesity, orange sugar, green is vegetable oil. So if you look here, In 1908, you had little to no diabetes, less than 2%, less than 2% obesity. And the sugar consumption was at around, what is that? 6%? Or this doesn't really give a percentage. It just says the calories. Okay, it's going to deal with the calories. So around 400 calories a day just off sugar, and vegetable oil is less than 100. You're looking at maybe 20, if that, calories a day of vegetable oil. So sugar consumption is high, but the obesity and diabetes is still somewhat low. So as you go up to 1935, what do you see a huge jump in? Out of all these things between sugar and vegetable oils, you see a huge jump in vegetable oil consumption. Jump to here. You also see a jump in sugar, but not as much as vegetable oil. And then you start to see diabetes and obesity jump up. Right. So if sugar was the main culprit here, we would have seen more obesity and diabetes in 1908. It wouldn't have been that low. Now, 2016, vegetable oil consumption has now superseded the sugar, which has jumped, but look how much it's jumped. It's jumped, but not very much. It's went from about close to 500 calories a day to about 550 a day. But you see vegetable oil in 1935 to about around 130 calories a day, jumping all the way up here to the top to over 700 calories a day of vegetable oil. And you see the percentage of diabetes and obesity. Diabetes jumped to 13%, and obesity jumped up to around 40%. So it's easy to see here that vegetable oil, not that sugar is not playing a part, is far superior to the cause of diabetes and obesity. Right? Two graphs here. Very, very interesting to see that. It says here, another major reason why seed oils are exponentially more pernicious to your health than sugar is that they last much longer in your body. The half-life of LA is around 600 to 680 days, or approximately 2 years. So when you get the linoleic acid from the vegetable oil in your body, it takes 2 years. Like if I ate some chicken fried in soybean oil today, or canola, okay, or sunflower or safflower or any of the vegetable oils, if I ate that today, it wouldn't be until September 13th, 2026, somewhere in around that time, before it would then leave. Just today. Doesn't include any other thing I ate previously or after, or if I ate something else that had vegetable oil in it other than the chicken today. 2 years. So imagine if you're eating this stuff every day, this vegetable oil, and it's accumulating and accumulating, and it's just in your body and it's not going anywhere. Can you see where obesity and chronic disease is coming from now? This means it will take you about 6 years to replace 95% of the LA in your body with healthy fats. That's damning, family. 6 years? It'll take 6 years. Once you start to reverse this and focus on the healthy fats, it'll take 6 years. Now, why isn't mainstream media even considering a topic of discussion and entertaining this research? Why? Well, let's take a look. We see corporations. We see them using these ingredients and substances. So they're making a lot of profit because this is very cheaply produced material here. Okay. And then you also can look at lawsuits. If they're using this stuff, and this is what it's doing to the body, obesity, chronic disease, now you run the risk of lawsuits because they've been using this stuff. And have they known about this? So that would make me realize why they would not want to have these conversations, because these corporations are sponsoring your media. When you watching your news, so-called, these are the corporations that are commercials are being shown in between news segments. Right? And then you would then hear them demonize and ostracize doctors that would come out and show this research. Because again, their corporate masters could not afford for a high level of the population to know this, because then what would it do for their profits? What would it do to then receive lawsuits? Okay. They run the risk of going belly up, being shut down and run out of business. It says here, this is the primary reason for keeping your LA intake low as possible. Meanwhile, your glycogen stores will be exhausted in about 1 to 2 days. So if you go on a sugar binge, that sugar doesn't stick around for years, destroying your health like the LA and seed oils does. So let's take a look here. We looked at the graphs. Okay, we're looking at the information as well, the actual details of this. Sugar only takes 2 days to basically deplete out of your body. 2 days. So we're comparing 2 days for sugar. Not that there isn't damage that's happening short term and can happen long term from the sugar, but you have 2 days versus 2 years. Now it would make sense about the obesity, especially with the vegetable oil increase and the obesity increase, while sugar is increasing, but not nowhere near the level of the vegetable oil, as well as diabetes. Since the induction of vegetable oil, because think about it, when you go back and you look at hundreds and hundreds of years of trading, I mean, you go back to the times where the ship vessels were going from country to country and there were trades. There were things that you always knew that they were trading: spice, sugar, salt. Okay, so sugar has always been something that's been used for trade. And yet these chronic diseases and obesity didn't exist. People consumed sugar. Now, they may not have consumed it to the level of what's being consumed now, but it was consumed, okay, and it wasn't causing major health problems. The only thing that we see introduced here that's showing a spike is the vegetable oil consumption. That's the biggest thing that we're seeing changing the game here. Okay, but there's more. How excess LA consumption can wreck your health? The main reason why excess LA causes disease is that it prevents your mitochondria from working well. Mitochondria are subcellular organelles responsible for producing most of your cellular energy in the form of ATP, and without ATP, your cells cannot function and repair themselves normally. So imagine the energy, again, what drives the cell, the engine of the cell, not being able to function or repair cells. Now you can understand when you're tired, you don't have any energy, you're sluggish. Not that there aren't other factors there, but if your cells don't have energy and can't function and can't repair themselves, what does that mean for you as a whole? You as a person as a whole. Okay, you're going to be in a very low state, health-wise and energy-wise, how you feel. It says here, as mentioned earlier, PUFAs such as LA are easily damaged by oxygen in a process called oxidation, which triggers the creation damaging free radicals. These in turn give rise to ALEs, and in this case of omega-6 fats, oxalams. These ALEs and oxalams then go on to cause mitochondrial dysfunction, which is a hallmark of most all chronic disease. In addition to oxidation, inflammation, and mitochondrial dysfunction, processed seed oils can also damage the cells lining your blood vessels, cause memory impairment, and increase your risk of Alzheimer's disease. Canola oil in particular has been linked to Alzheimer's. Strip your liver of glutathione, thereby lowering your antioxidant defenses. We've talked about glutathione a lot, being one of the most powerful antioxidant the body can produce. So it neutralizes that from being able to work in the body. Inhibit delta-6 desaturase, an enzyme involved in the conversion of short-chain omega-3s to longer-chain omega-3s in your liver. Impair your immune function and increase mortality. So that would be, again, a total contradiction to what the ISSA textbook told us, that it improves immune function, which would lead me to believe that they have mixed up CLA as LA when it comes to this particular part. Okay. CLA does improve immune function, but it's not the same as linoleic acid. Okay. That would be a total contradiction. As we're seeing here, it impairs, not improves, the immune function and increase mortality. It increases death. Because if you're impairing the immune system so your body can't fight disease, okay, you're causing problems in cells and in organs, then your chance of death is now going up. Make your fat cells more insulin sensitive, thereby causing insulin resistance, which leads to diabetes. Interesting. Inhibit cardiolipin, an important fat in the inner membrane of your mitochondria. Says the importance of cardiolipin here. The inhibition of cardiolipin in the inner membrane of your mitochondria explains much of the damage caused by LA. You have about 40 quadrillion to 100 quadrillion mitochondria throughout the cells of your body. The cristae of the inner membrane of the mitochondria contains a fat called cardiolipin, and its function is dependent on the type of fat you get from your diet. Cardiolipin is important because it influences the structure of cristae inside your mitochondria, which is the area where energy production occurs. If cardiolipin is damaged, then the complexes will not be close enough together to form supercomplexes, and thus the mitochondrial energy production will be impaired. Cardiolipin also works like a cellular alarm system that triggers apoptosis or cell death by signaling caspase 3 when something goes wrong with the cell. If the cardiolipin is damaged from oxidative stress due to having too much LA, it cannot signal caspase 3, and hence apoptosis does not occur. As a result, dysfunctional cells are not allowed to continue to grow, which can turn into a cancerous cell. So now here comes cancer. Something else that we haven't got to yet. Here comes cancer. The type of dietary fat that promotes healthy cardiolipin is omega-3 fat, and the type that destroys it is omega-6, especially LA. The image below illustrates a typical mitochondrial on the left. Figure C shows how the folds cause cardiolipin to provide the curve in the mitochondrial cristae. The following folding causes the supercomplexes in the electron transport chain to get closer together and more efficiently transfer electrons to produce ATP. So here's the mitochondria, and it shows the different parts of it. Okay, so the LA is destroying this engine of the cell. This drives the energy and repair of your cell, the mitochondria. The good news is that dietary changes can improve the composition of fats in your cardiolipin in a matter of weeks or even days. So even though it will take years to lower your total body burden of LA, you will likely notice improvements well before then. LA contributes to heart disease and cancer. Heart disease and cancer are two of the primary killers in the Western world. So that would be a whole nother graph to see. The spike and increase of heart disease and cancer since the induction or the introduction of vegetable oils to the diet. And LA is a significant contributor to both of these lethal conditions. One of the first things that happens in osteosclerosis, which is the precursor to heart disease, is that your macrophages, a type of white blood cell, turn into foam cells, essentially a macrophage stuffed with fat and cholesterol. Osteosclerotic plaque is basically dead macrophages and other type of cells loaded with cholesterol and fat. This is why heart disease is blamed on saturated fat and cholesterol. However, researchers have found that for foam cells to form, the LDL, low-density lipoprotein cholesterol, must be oxidized, and that it is precisely what seed oils do. Seed oils cause the LDL to oxidize, therefore forming foam cells. So LDL in all of itself does not initiate osteosclerosis. LDL susceptibility to this oxidative process is controlled by the LA content of your diet. Excess PUFAs also make your cell membranes more fragile, allowing them to be easily damaged by oxidation. Seed oils are also a major contributor to cancer. In fact, a surefire way to induce cancer in many animal models is to feed them seed oils. Animals typically develop cancer once the LA in their diet reaches 4% to 10% of their energy intake. So with animals, going back to animals, they removed LA. Okay, what was it? I think 10 generations. Forget if it was cows or just animals. But they had perfect health after 10 generations of no LA. Then we look here, and when LA reaches 4 to 10% of the energy they intake, you start to see cancer develop. So without the LA, the animals are fine and healthy for 10 generations. Introduce 4 to 10%, anywhere between 4 to 10% or more than 4%, up to 10. Now here comes cancer in the animals. And as mentioned, most Americans get approximately 25% of their total daily calories from seed oils. So we're far over the safety threshold for these fats, at least based on the laboratory work in animals. Remember, our ancestors typically got less than 2% of their calories in the form of omega-6. So we're looking at the traditional and ancient, how things were versus the modern. And while we're seeing an explosion of chronic disease and obesity, and this is typically in America where more things are processed and not natural. There's even evidence showing that eliminating seed oils from your diet will dramatically reduce your risk of sunburn and lower your risk of skin cancer, as susceptibility to UV radiation damage is controlled by how much LA is in your diet. Now, what foods to avoid and how? Let's take a look here. Very, very important. So now we've gone through the information. We've looked at the research, some of the studies. Now somebody may ask, okay, well, what do I need to look for? Okay, to watch out for, as well as what to focus on. We're going to get all that, right? I'm going to get all that. So primary sources of LA include seed oils used in cooking, processed foods, and restaurant foods made with seed oils, condiments, seeds, and nuts. Most olive oils, we're going to talk about that here in a moment, and avocado oils. The reason being due to high prevalence of adulteration with cheaper seed oils, basically meaning that most olive oils, this is another study that's been shown, and avocado oils have been shown not to be 100%. They may sell it to you as 100%, but they're actually cutting it for better profits with seed oils and selling it to you as if it's 100% olive or avocado oil, right? And animal foods raised on grains such as conventional chicken and pork. Okay, so animals that are raised on grains are also going to have a high level of LA. So even if you were to look at a cow, which is a clean animal, has now become, which should be a very healthy animal that we should consume with the cow, the meat itself, as well as the dairy, has now become a poisonous food if that cow is not pasture raised and it's being fed grains. And that's just, that's just for starters. I'm not talking about all the other stuff that they could be doing with the cow when it comes to, stuff they're putting in it, so-called pharmaceutically, right? So ideally, consider cutting LA down to below 7 grams per day, which is close to what our ancestors used to get. If you're not sure how much you're eating, enter your food intake into Chronometer, a free online nutrition tracker, and it will provide you with your total LA intake. So you can put what foods you're eating into this meter, and it'll tell you how much LA you're getting in those foods. Chronometer will tell you how much omega-6 you're getting from your food down to the 10th of a gram, and you can assume 90% of that is LA. Anything over 10 grams of LA is likely to cause problems. Healthy fat replacements include tallow, butter, or ghee, all of which are excellent for cooking. So we're going to talk about the replacements, what you should be eating instead here in a moment, what you should be looking for to cook your food in, as well as the products you get that have any type of fats that they've been cooked in, to make sure you know how to avoid this ingredient. The table below provides a fairly comprehensive list of the most commonly consumed oils and their approximate LA content. In general, the lowest LA containing fats, butter and beef tallow, would be the fats of choice. These excellent cooking fats would not only be the lowest in LA, but will also provide the fat soluble vitamins A, D, and K2. Coconut oil is also very low in LA, but doesn't provide the important fat soluble vitamins that tallow and butter contain. So let's take a look here. You have cooking oils and the percentage of LA in them. At the top, you have safflower oil and grapeseed oil. So you have a lot of people who are vegans, and they maybe not even vegans, just people in general who run to the grapeseed oil because it has a high cooking temperature. All right, which it does. However, it's one of the worst oils for your health because of the LA content. The omega ratio in grapeseed oil, omega-6 to omega-3 is like 200 to 1, and it should be somewhere around 4 to 1. So if you have grapeseed oil, based upon the research, you should stop cooking and using and ingesting it immediately. What other oils? Sunflower, 68%. Corn, 54%. Cottonseed, 52%. Soybean, 51%. Rice bran, 33%. Peanut, 32%. Canola, 19%. All in the red. So if you're using any of these oils, okay, and you're wondering why you can't lose weight, wondering why you can't shake chronic disease, or maybe you don't have either of those, but not realizing you're setting yourself up for a grim future of health with a silent killer, a silent mystery killer lurking in the form of linoleic acid in your omega-6 ratio in these oils. And you notice, and this is what you do, go look in your pantry and pull out start looking at all your different items you buy. And 99 times out of 100, you're going to have one of these oils in them. And it's some foods where it's like you could make this without putting that oil in there. Why would you even put one of these oils even in there? It can be made without it, but yet it's in there, hiding, lurking. Right? So, and then a lot of times what you'll see is on the back, the first, and not only that, it's the first ingredient. So you'll see safflower oil and or sunflower oil and or canola oil and it goes on and on and on and on to where you don't even know what oil it is, but it's a vegetable oil, but you don't know. And it's usually a combination of all of them. Probably one of the other most highest ones that you'll find, soybean oil. Soybean oil. It's in everything. Any type of salad dressing you buy, soybean oil. So what do? I make my own stuff. I use the oils and the ingredients that I know are healthy. I buy them organic from a good source at the store, or I buy them online. And if it's something like a salad dressing or something, which I usually typically use olive oil when I'm making my salad dressing. Olive oil or like some type of dairy, like a Greek yogurt, right? But look at your salad dressings, and you'll be hard pressed to find a salad dressing that doesn't have one of these oils. Typically, soybean. It's the oil of choice for all of your salad dressings you buy. And even your vegan salad dressing. So they'll slap vegan on it and you'll say, oh, this is healthy. It's vegan. Okay. Another deception. Labeling something labeled vegan as being healthy. Okay. A lot of stuff made with soy that's vegan. And it's just straight destroying our health. We don't have any idea. We just think it's vegan and it must be good. So you have olive oil, which can range between anywhere from 3% to 27%, depending on the source. But on average, you're looking at 10%. Okay. However, if you can get a organic, high quality olive oil from one country, okay, not from 5. You look on the back, it shouldn't say oil could be, it tells you it could be, meaning you don't know where it's coming from. It could be from Italy, Greece, Spain, Morocco, right? I have a list of all these different countries where it could be coming from, meaning you don't know where. So if it is coming from all these countries, that means you're getting oil from everywhere being put together in a concoction. You don't want that. Find a small company that has a small vineyard, small meaning compared to like the corporate vineyards, who's a family owned, that take pride in their work. Their sole survivability is on that product. They can't afford for it to be a bad product, right? It's coming from one country, from that one vineyard. That's the olive oil you should get. And that's the olive oil you should use. And you should be using olive oil for sauteing. You can use it for your salad dressings, more so either medium to lower heat. If you're going to use it for cooking, you don't want to use it for high heat because of the burn temperature. Okay. You're going to use something that you want to cook on a higher temperature, there are other oils that you can use. Now, so olive oil is at the top, very, very top of health, and it's loaded with antioxidants, polyphenols. So olives are very healing. The leaf, the fruit, the oil. Okay, as long as it's organic, you can't go wrong with olives and olive oil. Avocado oil, okay. The problem again, it has to be from a good source, but avocado oil is going to be at the bottom of the list. Avocados are good, but the oil is at the bottom of the list. It just doesn't have the nutritional profile that you would want. There's far superior oils that you could use. So what I typically do, if I'm going to do avocado oil, like for instance, there's a mayonnaise that I buy at the store. It's made with avocado oil only. It's not made with any other oil other than avocado oil. I'll buy that because I'm not finding a mayonnaise with using any other type of healthy oil. They don't exist. If I don't make my own mayonnaise with olive oil, which can take some time, I'll just buy the avocado oil mayonnaise from the store. And I'll get that because I don't need a lot of mayonnaise for like making my ranch dressing. I'll use mayonnaise. Doesn't take a lot of avocado oil or avocado oil mayonnaise to make that, or when I'm consuming the dressing. So I'm getting very little avocado oil once I mix everything else up in there. So it's very minimal. Okay, that would be the only time I personally would use avocado oil. Right? Something like that. Something where it's already, you have certain chips that use avocado oil, or maybe it's popcorn cooked in avocado oil only. Then I might do that. But outside of that, there's better options than avocado oil. Of course, lard, we're totally disregarding because it is pig. But to show you, it has 10% LA. So as bad as pig is, right? Somebody would say, oh, it's not vegan. But you come up here to safflower oil and you're causing way more destruction to your health than somebody who's eating an unclean pig. Right? Palm oil, okay? Something that's not widely known or used is another option. Some stuff you may find, and typically palm oil for me is if I'm looking for another ingredient in my food. Like for instance, I buy these certain tortillas that use palm oil with making the tortilla, because they put these other oils is what you're going to find in most of your flour tortillas. which flour tortillas can be made without oil. Really, they can be made without it. But again, they're putting the stuff in everything. So if you're going to get me to get a flour tortilla from the store, then I'm looking for palm oil to be in it and no other oil if I can find it. Other than that, I wouldn't use palm oil unless it's like a bottom of the list option. Okay. Now, the green is where you really want to focus on. Everything to be grass-fed and organic. Because look at the percentage of LA. So most of the stuff has a 2-to-1 omega-6 to 3 ratio. You want it to be no more than 4-to-1. A lot of the stuff is 2-to-1. Right? So, and a lot of this stuff is coming from cows. Now we can understand why there is this thing out right now where they're talking about get rid of the cows for various reasons. Ghee butter, 2% LA. You want it to be grass-fed. High burn temperature. So you can actually cook with this on higher temperatures. But typically the butters I usually use in sauces, and if you were going to use it for baking, that'd be more so what you would want to use butter for. Sauces and baking. Okay, so your grass-fed butter, 1%, has a lower burn temperature, so it can burn. Okay, so a sauce on sauteing or baking, you'd use butter or ghee butter. Higher burn temperature, but grass-fed butter even better. Not much better, just a percentage of LA. Coconut oil. Okay, this is for if you're doing some serious cooking. You want to fry some wings, fry some chicken. You need, a good layer of oil to fry with. Coconut oil. Okay, coconut oil, organic, good source. I get the big tub from the Philippines. Okay, and I use coconut oil. Step above the coconut oil is going to be your tallows, because the tallows are going to have the vitamins, the fat soluble vitamins, the A, the D, and the K2. So you have beef tallow, you have bison tallow, you have lamb tallow. Basically, it's fat. Okay, it's fat that they whip up and they render it and whip it up into like a creamy state. And it can be cooked in high temperature. Okay, so I do a lot of cooking with tallow. Okay, I do more cooking with tallow than coconut oil. Okay, and then I use a lot of ghee butter with my sauces. Okay, and so these are the fats you want to focus on that they have told us are bad, and they've told us that this is good. But we're going to see. At the end of this, we're going to go to the Bible and see what the Bible has to say about all this, to see if it can confirm this information or not. Let's keep going here. And again, here is a screenshot here, as you can see here on your screen. Cooking swaps. They don't have the tallow on here on your right that you could use. Right? But you get the idea. Stay away from the left. Focus on the right. If you go out to eat to a restaurant, understand they're going to be cooking with what you see on the left. It's going to be hard to find a restaurant that's cooking with the oils on your right. So what could you do? Like, let's say, for instance, you go to a restaurant, instead of getting French fries that are cooked in oil, you can get a baked potato that doesn't need oil, right? So these are just certain little hacks that you can do if you're going to go out to eat, that you can make sure, sometimes you may, okay, I'm going to eat that today. You eat out once a week. I'm going to eat that today. I'm going to eat something that's fried, whatever, at the restaurant, right? But you don't make a habit of it. And sometimes you may say, you know what, I'm going to do the baked potato this time eating out than the French fries. Or the grilled chicken other than the fried chicken. See, these are little hacks that you can do while you're out eating, if you're going to eat out, if you're not cooking at home. All right. Now, let's finish out here. We got a video and some scriptures to go through, and then we're going to finish this out. Right? It says vast majority of olive oil and avocado oil are adulterated. Most people introduced to the topic of omega-6 toxicity have questions about olive oil and avocado oil. Consumption of olive oil has increased more than tenfold in the U.S. over the past 35 years. Olives and olive oil are well known for their many health benefits, especially for your heart. But using adulterated olive oil will not do your health any favors. Tests have revealed that anywhere from 60 to 90% of the olive oil sold in American grocery stores and restaurants are adulterated with cheap, oxidized omega-6 vegetable oils, such as sunflower oil or peanut oil or non-human grade olive oils, which are harmful to health in a number of ways. This is even true for extra virgin olive oil. Cheap seed oils are added and will not be listed on the label, nor will most people be able to discern that their olive oil is not 100% pure. Chances are you've been eating poor quality olive oil so long, or you never tasted a pure high quality olive oil to begin with. You don't even realize there's something wrong with it. The same applies to avocado oil. Many believe avocado oil is healthy as olive oil, but this is simply not the case. A 2020 study shows that 82% of avocado oil is adulterated, mislabeled, or of poor quality. In general, people believe the U.S. FDA is policing and regulating food fraud, but that's not the case. Its primary focus are making sure the ingredient label is accurate and tracking food-related disease outbreaks. The FDA does little in terms of preventing illegally adulterated foods from being sold. This makes discerning quality a difficult task. And unless you can somehow ensure you're getting 100% pure unadulterated olive oil and or avocado oil, you're better off avoiding them altogether. Go easy on the nuts and seeds. Most people who are interested in health believe that nuts and seeds are healthy staples. However, as you can see in the table below, most nuts and seeds are exceedingly high in LA. For example, 50% of the fat in pecans is LA. The only exception is macadamia nuts. So while nuts and seeds are often unprocessed and are the best type of omega-6 fats to eat, they will still contribute to the LA content of your diet. And once you hit 5 grams of LA per day, the perishable double bonds will begin to oxidize and generate dangerous free radicals that lead to health problems. So nuts and seeds need to be significantly minimized or even eliminated if you want to lower your LA. As mentioned, the exception to the rule is macadamia. Since only 2% of the fat is LA, you can have 10 to 30 a day without significantly raising your LA level. So here is the seeds, nuts on the left and the percentage of linoleic acid on the right. Right, so keep that in mind as you get down to the orange, yellow, and green, knowing that you could do some of these a little bit more, but not to go crazy with them because of the LA, especially if you're trying to focus on now knowing I've been consuming a lot of this vegetable oil, seed oil for so long, and I want to get this out of my body, then you'll want to do that. And keep in mind that this LA is natural. It's not processed, ultra processed like the vegetable oil is. Okay, the vegetable oil goes through dozens upon dozens of chemical processes to be made in the $2 gallon jug they give you, right? If that doesn't tell you something in itself, that it's $2, you see these huge vats and gallons all down the grocery store aisle of these huge vats of vegetable oil, cheap, $2, knowing that anything is cheap, more than likely it's not going to be good for your health. Okay, especially if it went through that many processes to be made. How could they make it that cheap with that many processes? Right, so LA and animal foods. While seed oils are a primary source of LA, a number of animal foods you might not suspect are also loaded with this harmful fat. Ruminant animals such as cows, buffalo or bison, sheep, lamb, goats, deer, elk, and many other game animals have low LA content in their milk and meat, no matter what they eat, thanks to the fact that they have multiple stomachs with bacteria that can convert the high LA fat they eat into saturated and monounsaturated fats. So again, these are the animals at the top of the chain when you talk about the healthiest animals to eat. Okay, their meat, their tallows, their fats, their dairy. Make sure that, for deer and elk, you don't have to worry about them typically being grass-fed or pasture-raised because they're wild. But the rest of these are typically raised in, commercial settings. So you want to make sure that they are pasture-raised, organic. Okay, don't have stuff pumped in them. Okay, pharmaceuticals pumped all in them because you are what you eat. If they're being pumped in them, you're eating that. Now you're getting that. This is where a lot of people have the dairy allergies from. It's not from the animal. Okay, it's the fact that that animal is genetically modified. That animal is eating grain and not grass. That animal is being pumped full of stuff, and your body's having a reaction to that. And then you think it's the animal. I can't eat that. Okay. So animals with a single stomach, however, like chickens and pigs, cannot make this conversion. So when they're fed corn and soy, which are high in LA, their meat and eggs will also be high in LA. Most chicken and pork have over 25% LA. Chicken eggs are acceptable, though, as each egg has less than 1 gram of LA, and that is assuming they are fed commercial feeds that are loaded with high LA. So basically, if you're going to do chicken, free range chicken, right? The breast and the eggs, because the breast is going to be, you're not going to get the LA with the breast because the breast is the least fatty part of the chicken. So it's lean and fat. Okay. If you're doing the legs and the thighs, then you're going to get the LA in the chicken. And the reason why, because chickens have a single stomach. So chickens really don't have a stomach at all. They have a gizzard. So basically with the chicken, whatever they eat, they must eat, the different little small pebbles and rocks to help break the food down. So they're not able to break down the LA. And so then they accumulate the LA and then you eat them and you're getting the LA from the chicken. So while chicken is clean, we're not dealing with pig in any form of fashion here. But while chicken is a clean animal, it is not superior. It is not a superior animal to eat than these here. And we haven't got the fish yet. Okay, haven't got the fish yet. So chicken are just like avocado oils at the bottom, chicken are at the bottom. But the eggs are at the top. The eggs are pasture-raised chickens, and you can put the eggs up here. It's probably the number one above even these animals here. What the eggs give you in nutrition. Interestingly, the difference in LA in ruminants that are 100% grass-fed and those that are fed corn and soy is only about 0.5%, which is why from an LA perspective, there isn't much difference between conventional beef and grass-fed beef, grass-fed only beef. That said, grass-fed beef is still preferred as it is typically has less glyphosate and hormones. Yeah, so you may not get the LA regardless of whether that cow is fed grass or grain, but you're going to have other problems if that cow isn't grass fed. A lot of other problems than just dealing with glyphosate and hormones. Okay. So in summary, your best option is to get the most of your animal protein from ruminants and avoid or limit all chicken and pork. My favorite meats are bison and lamb, but any of those ones listed above will work. Ideally, it should be organic and the animal should not be fed any food that is contaminated with glyphosate or other pesticides. LA and seafood. Ideally, you'll get your omega-3s from healthy seafood. However, not all seafoods contain omega-3s. Only fatty cold water fish do. Example, wild-caught Alaskan salmon, sardines, anchovies, mackerel, and herring. So these are the fish you really want to focus on, especially salmon. Okay. High in omega-3. Okay. Fatty fish. Okay. Little to no LA. Very, very healthy. Farm fish, especially farm salmon, is best avoided altogether due to the exaggerated potential for contamination. At first glance, farm fish may seem like a good idea to help protect wild seafood populations from overfishing, but in reality, the industry is plagued with many of the same problems surrounding land-based concentrated animal feeding operations, including pollution, disease, toxicity, and inferior nutritional quality. So no matter what fish you eat, make sure it's wild caught. Okay? No farm raised, no China fish coming from China. Stay away. Most farm fish are fed genetically engineered corn and soy, which are completely unnatural diet for marine life and are loaded with hazardous omega-6 fats. Others are fed fish meal, which is known to accumulate industrial chemicals like PCBs and dioxins. From a nutritional perspective, farm salmon also have the drawbacks of containing only half the omega-3 of wild salmon and 1/4 the vitamin D, while having more than 5.5 times the amount of omega-6. Farm salmon are also routinely exposed to antibiotics and pesticides. Now, somebody may say, well, what about the mercury and stuff like that in the water, even for wild caught? Well, the good thing from my research with salmon is that salmon have the ability to not actually accumulate the mercury in their bodies. So when you get wild caught salmon, it has little to no mercury in it, as opposed to maybe some other fish species. So that's not something you have to worry about with salmon. But again, look at these fish, do your research. Here again, only clean fish with scales and fins. Carnosine can help reduce LA-induced oxidative stress. While your body will slowly eliminate stored LA over time, provided you reduce your intake, a peptide supplement called carnosine can help reduce the oxidative damage caused by LA while your body is cleaning itself out. Carnosine is a dipeptide your body makes, and it consists of 2 amino acids, beta-alanine and histidine. It serves as a sacrificial sink for reactive oxygen species. ROS and ALEs, meaning it lets these very damaging molecules destroy it rather than your mitochondria. DNA are proteins as depicted in the image below. Okay, so here's an image here showing you can actually supplement with carnosine, which will help with the oxidative stress caused by the omega-6 or the linoleic acid. Right, carnosine is found in meats, and eating animal protein is known to efficiently raise carnosine levels. It's not found in any plant foods. Alternatively, you could use a supplement. In this case, beta-alanine is a superior choice as it's the rate-limiting amino acid in the formation of carnosine and raises carnosine levels more efficiently. It's also far less expensive than carnosine. Summary. Here's a summary. Do yourself and your family a favor and embark on a journey of eliminating all seed oils from your diet today to ward off virtually all chronic degenerative diseases. This means avoiding all seed oils and even fruit oils like olive oil and avocado oils, as they are frequently adulterated with cheap seed oils. And again, I explained the olive oil and the avocado oil. Okay, avocado is at the bottom of the list. Olive oil is at the top, but you have to make sure, okay, organic, one country of origin, and it's from a small business, not a big corporation. The small mom and pops shops that produced your olive oil in Greece and Italy and Spain. I get mine from a company called Atlas in Morocco. Okay, and you can read about the company. They tell you about themselves, how they have orchard there in Morocco. It's their family farm, and they you know, their olive oil is organic, and they give you all the quality details of their oil. Okay, now buy it online and get it from, you know, get it wherever. Okay, but other than that, just buying random ones that, you know, mostly probably the cheaper versions are gonna be probably not 100%. Okay, but olive oil is one of the best oils because of the antioxidants in it. So you definitely want to be consuming olive oil. We have cook with ghee, butter, or beef tallow, and avoid all processed foods as they are typically loaded with seed oils. Also avoid eating in restaurants as nearly all use massive amounts of seed oils to cook with and put in their sauces and dressings. Lastly, avoid chicken and pork and stick to bison and lamb as your primary meat sources. Again, chicken is clean, but probably not the best option when it comes to the best meat for LA content purposes. So typically, like I said, I like to mix up the diet. You know, beef a couple times through the week. I get some lamb in. You know, if I can get my hands on some deer or some elk, some bison, you know, do fish, you know, throughout the week. And then, you know, you can sprinkle chicken a time or two here and there throughout the week. And if you're going to fry it, make sure you're using one of the oils we talked about. And the breast is going to be the best part of the chicken to focus in on for your health's sake. And so that concludes this particular article. Now we're going to go to the Bible, and you all will get this article. We're going to go to the Bible to see what the Bible has to say about all this. And we are going to watch a video to conclude with what we have went over also. So let me pull up the scripture here. Let me pull up the scripture for you all. So when we go to the book of Genesis, chapter 18, very beginning, right? The book of Genesis. You can read the whole chapter. We're going to start at verse 6. Genesis 18:6 reads, "And Abraham hastened into the tent unto Sarah and said, Make ready quickly 3 measures of fine meal, knead it, and make cakes upon the hearth. And Abraham ran into the herd and fetched a calf, tender and good, and gave it unto a young man, and he hastened to dress it." So Abraham went and got a young cow to eat. So this is for those people that try to demonize the cows, that they're bad. Okay. You even have those that are vegans that try to say that you shouldn't be eating meat. But let's see here. See what Abraham did with this cow. Verse 8. And he took butter and milk. Okay, so butter comes from milk. It's a process of churning the milk to get the butter. So Abraham took from this cow butter and milk, and the calf which he had dressed, and set it before them, and he stood by them under the tree, and they did eat. So what does it mean when it says he dressed the calf? Did he take clothes and put it on the cow? No. It means he butchered it. He butchered the cow, okay, and cleaned it. So it means when it says he dressed it, he cleaned the cow, okay, and cooked it. After you clean it, you get the organs and all that out. You get the meat. Okay, you're skinning out the skin. Right, you're dressing it. Okay, and he took butter, milk, all the stuff he was using to prepare the meat. Okay, and he stood by them under the tree, and they did eat. Right. And so let me get another one here. There's another scripture I was looking for as well. All right, let me pull it up one moment. Yeah, I think that was it. That was it, but I'll pull this one up here too. Genesis chapter 27 and 1 says, "And it came to pass that when Isaac was old and his eyes were dim so that he could not see, he called Esau his eldest son and said unto him, My son. He said unto him, Behold, here am I. And he said, Behold, now I am old. I know not the day of my death. Now therefore take, I pray thee, thy weapons, thy quiver, and thy bow, and go out to the field and take me some venison." Okay, which is deer. So Abraham ate beef with dairy, milk, butter. He didn't cook it in vegetable oil. The vegetable oil didn't exist. Okay, I'm about to show you the process that it takes to make just to get vegetable oil. We've seen it in the previous video of what it must go through to become vegetable oil. Like, how do they get this stuff $2 for a gallon? Ain't no way they could make this stuff $2 for a gallon of vegetable oil. This has to be intensely priced this low to make sure that we purchase it and use it for what all it took for them to make that. Okay. But Abraham lived to be 175 years old. So if Abraham was eating the wrong, oh, you're not supposed to eat meat. Oh, you're not supposed to take the dairy. Well, Abraham did, and he lived to be 175 years old. How many people personally lived to be 175 years old? We have people dropping dead at 20 and 30 right now out here. Okay? And it's because of what they're eating and stuff they're putting into their body. Okay? Same with Isaac. Lived many, many, many years. And he ate venison. He ate deer. So how did these men get to live to eat that long? These are the traditional things that we've always ate. And we were fine living to an old age. But once they start introducing man's processed stuff and telling us, oh, stay away from that stuff Abraham and Isaac was eating, that stuff will kill you. Right? That stuff will kill you. Oh, here we got some unsaturated fats. Look at all what we have on the shelf for you. $2 a gallon. Come get some of this. It's cheap too. This is stuff they used to put in use in for fuel for cars and tractors and huge machinery. And then they turn around and then sold it to us as food and say, oh, you can cook with this stuff. But we have a video here, and then we're going to close out with this. Vegetable oil health risk. Why heart-healthy vegetable oils are the root of all chronic disease. Fair use. For educational purposes only. Fair use.
Americans have been told that vegetable oils are a safe and heart-healthy alternative to saturated fats like butter and lard. But ever since we started consuming more vegetable oils and less saturated fat, heart disease has skyrocketed and is currently the #1 killer in America. So what's going on here?
There's a bullet, a matador, dueling in the sky. In hell, there's heaven.
We are in a chronic disease epidemic. Never before in human history have we been plagued by non-infectious, non-contagious, life-threatening diseases to the degree that we are now. It's generally recognized that the rise in rate of chronic disease has something to do with our lifestyle. We exercise less, we get worse and less sleep,
we are exposed to less natural and more artificial light, and perhaps most importantly, our diet has changed dramatically. A lot of different dietary factors have been accused as being culprits to this epidemic. Maybe it's the amount of sugar we eat, fast food restaurants on every corner, or that we're drinking too much alcohol. While all of these play their role, today we'd like to make the case that these so-called heart-healthy vegetable oils may be the main driver in our current poor health. The first thing that needs to be addressed is that vegetable oils should be called seed oils or bean oils. You won't find cabbage or asparagus oil on any food label, but trying to find one without canola or soybean oil is much more difficult. Have you ever sat down with a bag of sunflower seeds and wondered, how the hell does one get oil out of this? Well, the process of extracting oil from seeds and beans is incredibly complex and honestly pretty scary, but that's not what we want to discuss. We know a lot of food is heavily processed, but what exactly is it about these oils that makes them so dangerous? The final refined vegetable oil is primarily comprised of polyunsaturated fats. They are typically very high in omega-6 fat and very low in omega-3 fat content.
Now let's check this chart out here. Okay, so the green is your saturated fats. You see your different items on the left. The orange is mono, unsaturated, which they're telling us that unsaturated fats are good. So the mono and the polyunsaturated fats, which is where you get your omega-6 and omega-3. Omega-6 is your purple and omega-3 is your blue. So we want to focus on the purple and the blue here. So when we go through here, we're looking at where's the purple and where's the blue, right? So as we see here, a lot of purple, a lot of purple. For flaxseed, you see a lot more blue than purple. So the omega-3 to 6 ratio is good here. However, with flaxseed, you may run into some other issues with the oil, but the flax themselves are fine because you'll see, again, what we read in the Bible, you'll see them take the flax mainly for clothing, but these are the things, you're going to consume some flax seed, the seed itself, a little bit of flax is fine. Okay. But look at all the purple for the sunflower, all the purple for the corn. Now look at the olive oil. You see very little purple and you see the blue. So you see a good ratio here. Look at the sesame, a lot of purple. Soybean, a lot of purple. Peanut, a lot of purple. Now let's look at salmon. Look at how much blue for the omega-3 you get with the salmon, then you get to the purple, the omega-6. Same with the cream cheese, which is dairy, comes from cow. Look how close the ratio is between the blue and the purple with the dairy product. Come back here to cottonseed, all this purple. Chicken fat, again, we talked about the chicken. Typically the chicken fat is found in the dark meat. You're not going to find chicken fat, a lot of it in the white meat, but you see all the purple. You see it lower in the lard, which is pork. Again, we're not dealing with unclean animals. However, you see the difference with just because it's natural. When it's natural, it's low. When it's unnatural, it's high. Beef tallow, look at the ratio, almost 1-to-1. Butter, almost 1-to-1. Cocoa butter, very little with coconut products of the omega-6. Same with palm. Okay, and coconut, or cocoa meaning, cocoa meaning the from the cocoa plant where you get your chocolate from. But the coconut oil and the palm, very low omega-6 to 3. So you see here the foods we should be focusing in on and the ones we should be avoiding. Here, the natural plants and the animals versus the unnatural chemical processing of these seed oils. All right, let's continue here.
Omega-6 fats are essential fatty acids. They are necessary for proper function and cannot be synthesized by the body, so they must be obtained from the diet. However, an imbalance between omega-6 and omega-3 fats can be very problematic. It's generally recommended that a ratio of omega-6 to omega-3 fats in the diet should be around 1 to 4 for optimal health. However, the average person consuming a modern Western diet will have a ratio between 15 to 17 and can range much higher. The ratio of omega-6 to omega-3 in vegetable oils ranges from the harmless 2 in canola oil to the incomprehensibly bad 258 in cottonseed oil. So, what exactly is the problem with too much omega-6 and not enough omega-3? An easier question to answer would be, what isn't the problem with too much omega-6 and not enough omega-3? By now, most people know that omega-6 fatty acids generally lead to more inflammation, and omega-3 fatty acids generally have anti-inflammatory effects. A massive imbalance in the body's regulation of inflammation coming from a poor omega-6 to omega-3 ratio will likely result in a state of chronically elevated inflammation. In his paper titled Chronic Disease, Are We Missing Something?, Dr. James Oshman states, with respect to chronic disease, a plausible, testable, and refutable hypothesis is that all chronic diseases have a single underlying cause: the stresses that produce and maintain chronic inflammation. A corollary to the hypothesis is that the thousands of so-called diseases that have been named may actually be an elaborate classification system of the various symptoms that can arise from a single underlying condition: inflammation.
So this doctor put a paper out dealing with chronic disease, and through his research, his conclusion was that inflammation is the single underlying condition of chronic disease. And it just so happens that linoleic acid and omega-6 causes the inflammation while neutralizing and inhibiting the omega-3 factors that can actually lower inflammation. So now we understand why and how this ingredient is so destructive. It causes inflammation, okay, and it builds up in the body with a half-life of 2 years.
He goes on to list various chronic conditions that have been thoroughly linked with chronic inflammation. While chronic inflammation can be caused by various factors, the omega-6 to omega-3 ratio may be amongst the most important factors. Studies lowering the ratio of essential fatty acids have shown significant decreases in mortality amongst heart disease patients and a decrease in tumor proliferation in cancer patients. Polyunsaturated fats, due to their chemical structure, are highly unstable and prone to oxidation. This means that exposure to heat or light will cause them to react and form some particularly problematic compounds: lipid peroxides and free radicals. Lipid peroxides and free radicals are so eager to react that when they are present in the body, they can easily degrade nearly every component of our bodies. This can range from various proteins, organelles of our cells, and perhaps most importantly, our DNA. A common theory of why we age in general is that the amount of damage or oxidative stress that oxidants create over time accumulates and causes us to slowly degrade. This is why dietary antioxidants are commonly cited as being anti-aging, since they can act as free radical scavengers and yield a harmless byproduct. Now you may be thinking to yourself, okay, so they're bad when they get heated up, so I just won't cook in them and I'm fine. The problem is that they have to be heated multiple times over in order to make the final refined oil. This means that any product that has vegetable oil inevitably already has some of these toxic byproducts in them. They're also more often than not stored in clear bottles in their pure form, meaning they are constantly being exposed to light, making oxidation even more likely.
Not only are they being exposed to light, but these products are also coming in these plastics. And it's a whole nother topic of conversation of all the microplastics now accumulating inside people. So typically when you get your olive oil, it's going to be in a glass bottle, okay? Or should you get any of the oils, make sure it's food grade, make sure it is free of the actual harmful plastic chemicals they can accumulate as well. Okay, so you're getting all of that on top of the plastic byproducts with the vegetable oil.
This isn't to say polyunsaturated fats are inherently bad. In fact, all of our essential fatty acids are polyunsaturated fats. The difference is that in unrefined whole foods, these fats are accompanied by vitamins and minerals that act as antioxidants. That is, they protect these normally unstable fats from being easily broken down.
You see that? So in their natural state, when these things are in their natural state and they're not processed, they have the vitamins and the minerals in them to help balance the omega-6 harmful properties. But when you get it in the vegetable oil sense, there are no minerals, there are no vitamins. The vitamin E has been destroyed through the heat process. So there's nothing there to help protect you from the omega-6 harmful factors.
Vegetable oils will typically contain vitamin E, which should protect against this oxidation. However, repeated heating degrades vitamin E, further compounding the issue. So what kinds of damage does repeated exposure of these highly reactive products cause in our body? Well, these products, known as reactive oxygen species, can cause chronic oxidative stress within the body. This chronic oxidative stress has been linked to just about every chronic disease in existence, from Parkinson's to non-alcoholic fatty liver disease, and even things like male infertility. The ability of excess reactive oxygen species to damage components of our bodies makes them incredibly harmful and possibly at the epicenter of all chronic disease. For example, when cells are overexposed to reactive oxygen species, their DNA can get damaged, leading to the initiation of cancer. One particular mechanism I'd like to look at is how reactive oxygen species could be the driving force of heart disease, the leading killer in all of America. Cholesterol, and specifically LDL cholesterol, have been demonized in the past as huge implications for developing heart disease. You've heard it a million times. Cholesterol is going to clog up your arteries and give you a heart attack. However, this isn't quite how it works. LDL in itself is a perfectly normal and essential particle that travels in our blood. It carries cholesterol, fat-soluble vitamins, and other important components to other cells that need them. It is true that cholesterol is contained within the plaques that clog arteries, but how it gets there is what's really important. LDL on its own is little concern for heart disease. However, when it becomes damaged due to excess glucose, insulin, or reactive oxygen species, it becomes a driver of plaque buildup. It's been shown that oxidized LDL is a far better predictor of heart disease than LDL. When LDL becomes oxidized, they will kill the cells of the arteries, as Ivor Cummins details in this interview.
So they took the L1, 2, and 3 natural from both people, and it did not cause any endothelial distress. The endothelial cells incubated with it, they were fine. No cell death. But the L4 and L5 minimally modified, mildly oxidized from the unhealthy guys, that killed 40% of the endothelial cells in culture.
When vegetable oils are repeatedly heated and then consumed, they will form reactive oxygen species, leading to the oxidation of LDL particles. Not only this, but excess dietary omega-6 will actually become incorporated into the membrane of LDL particles, meaning that they will become more vulnerable to oxidation. Normally, when LDL particles are done doing their job, they will get taken back up by the liver via proteins that the liver can recognize. However, when the LDL gets oxidized, the liver no longer recognizes them, so these oxidized LDL particles continue to float around in the bloodstream. Since these particles are inherently toxic to the cells in the blood vessels, the body triggers an immune response to clear them out of the blood. This response causes the body to engulf them in the walls of the arteries where the plaque buildup begins.
Hi, Mr. Cholesterol here. Nice housewarming.
So ironically enough, while vegetable oils have been marketed as heart healthy due to their ability to lower blood cholesterol, they actually are a primary driver of heart disease, especially when used for cooking. This study looked at 850 men and had the experimental group replace saturated fat with polyunsaturated vegetable oils, and they tracked their mortality and cholesterol levels. The good news is the vegetable oil group did lower their cholesterol. The bad news is they also died more, had more heart attacks, and more cancer. We shouldn't be focusing on what fats raise our LDL levels. We should be looking at what we are doing to make sure that these particles don't deteriorate and increase our risk of heart disease. It's also important to consider that an abundance of omega-6s, regardless of omega-3 intake, can contribute to disease, oxidized before consumption or not. The omega-3 fatty acid linoleic acid gets converted into arachidonic acid in the body, which is what is being used to get things done. However, a high linoleic acid diet has been associated with insulin resistance, heart disease, and overall oxidative stress within the body, while high arachidonic acid is inversely related to these conditions. It is linoleic acid, not the usable arachidonic acid, that is by far the biggest constituent of vegetable oils. The problem with consuming too much linoleic acid from vegetable oil, even if you're not cooking in it, is that it is particularly susceptible to being oxidized within the body. As I described before, linoleic acid and LDL membranes will make them more prone to oxidation, and this is even more of an issue in the mitochondrial membrane. This is because, as we all know, the mitochondria is the powerhouse of the cell, producing energy. In the process, it has to inevitably create some reactive oxygen species. It's a normal process that happens whenever we produce energy, and under normal conditions, the body is well equipped to deal with these byproducts. However, when the integrity of the mitochondria becomes compromised, things turn very bad very fast. I'd like to focus on a specific part of the mitochondria called cardiolipin. Cardiolipin is located on the inside of the mitochondria, very close to the site of energy production, which means it is also very close to the reactive products yielded in the process. Cardiolipin is comprised of fatty acids. Specifically, it uses fatty acids that come from the diet. So the overconsumption of linoleic acid in the form of vegetable oils will result in a higher amount of linoleic acid in cardiolipin. Due to the proximity of cardiolipin to reactive oxygen species, cardiolipin with a lot of linoleic acid will become oxidized very easily. This in turn creates more toxic byproducts and compromises the function of the mitochondria in the process. This study saw a 6-fold decrease in cardiolipin with a high linoleic acid diet, indicating that they were indeed becoming oxidized. They also found that these patients had significant reductions in glutathione, an important antioxidant in the body that should combat this oxidation. So now we have mitochondria that aren't functioning properly, an abundance of reactive byproducts free to run amok in the rest of the body, and a lesser capability to deal with these byproducts. Not only this, but it's been found that when cardiolipin becomes oxidized, the cell can trigger a process known as apoptosis, which is basically cellular suicide. Apoptosis is a normal part of every cell's life, but having our cells constantly killing themselves due to mitochondrial damage, of course, isn't an ideal situation. The amount of deleterious downstream effects that this could have on our health is alarming. Dysfunctional mitochondria in the heart could cause heart failure, diabetes, and coronary heart disease. In the liver, it could lead to fatty liver disease and eventually cirrhosis. Total parenteral nutrition, or TPN, is a type of liquid intravenous feeding that hospitals give directly into the bloodstream of patients who cannot properly digest food. The liquid they give to patients is very high in soybean oil, which of course is very high in linoleic acid. Up to half of patients who receive TPN for more than 5 years develop fatty liver disease. Meanwhile, when the soybean oil is swapped for fish oil, patients see no liver dysfunction. And this is just one part of it. Imagine all of the potential implications of having cells of all kinds in the body committing suicide because you've been told corn oil is a safe alternative to butter. This is why we believe seed oils to be at the root of all chronic disease. The high omega-6 to omega-3 ratio will predispose people to a state of chronic inflammation. Linoleic acid is easily oxidized before you consume it and creates substantial oxidative stress within the body. Even if it is intact when you eat it, if you have too much of it, it will incorporate itself into your mitochondria and potentially cause mitochondrial dysfunction and even cell death. Chronic inflammation, oxidative stress, and mitochondrial dysfunction are at the core of nearly every chronic disease. Currently, the planet consumes about 200 million tons of vegetable oils per year. It's cheap, easy to produce, and makes for an easy fat to cook in or add to any product. The average American has a whopping 8% of their total calorie intake coming from linoleic acid alone. These numbers are staggering, as is the massive destruction that high consumption of vegetable oils can have on the human body. So, as a society, there's a lot we need to correct in terms of our lifestyle to prevent chronic disease. However, the amount of vegetable oils we consume could very well be the primary cause of this epidemic.
That's that video there. And then, in conclusion, as we said we would, let us come back over here to our ISSA textbook, because they had put in here that linoleic acid was good for our immune system, as well as other benefits. However, when we drop down, what does it say? Does it confirm what we've read tonight and seen from different sources? It says here, excess linoleic acid in the body can cause inflammation. There it is. Headaches and lethargy. Okay. So they'll say that, but then they'll say while deficiency can lead to skin and hair conditions like dermatitis and alopecia or developmental delays in children, it should be noted that deficiency is rare. Exactly. So there's no reason to even mention deficiency, because it's virtually impossible if you're eating just regular. Let's say if you didn't eat anything processed, you're going to get the linoleic acid if you just ate beef, because it's in the beef. Okay, but it's at a very small percentage, so it's impossible to become deficient. But they do say that it does cause the inflammation, which then would contradict the benefits of helping our immune system. So to me, I believe they just got linoleic acid mixed up with the CLA. If you come down here in the article, it does mention the CLA. Let me see if I can find it here real quick. Right here. CLA. The conjugated linoleic acid, which is confused sometimes with LA because it is an omega-6 fat. So it's easy to confuse the two because it has linoleic acid in it. However, CLA has many potent health benefits and doesn't cause the problems that LA does. So I would just say that they got that part confused and had those benefits for CLA listed here. But again, the inflammation cannot be denied from what linoleic acid causes, and we have seen where it comes from. Okay, we have seen where it comes from. And what you should do, family, is take a look in your pantry. When you go to the grocery store, look at the ingredients in the foods you buy and try to find something that doesn't have one of the vegetable oils listed as an ingredient. You may not cook with this stuff, or you may, but let's say you don't. I guarantee you, If you're buying something from the store, it's processed, it's going to have vegetable oil in it. So some way, somehow, you're going to get it. And so this becomes the challenge of now finding the processed food items without the vegetable oil. Okay. And a lot of times it comes down to you making these products from scratch yourself, which is what I have now reverted to doing, making a lot of stuff from scratch, buying the single ingredients whole from good sources so I can eliminate the harmful ingredients and make sure it's only getting the beneficial ingredients in it. All right. But like I said, do your research. We provided a lot tonight. Continue to do your research on this topic. Also share with others this information because a lot of people don't know this, and a lot of people are sick. A lot of people are overweight. And for everything I've seen, I'm over convinced that this is the case. I don't need, I've done a lot of research on this. This is just one article. Okay. But for some of you, the jury may still be out for you on this topic. Okay. But it should be pretty clear at this point with the information that's been provided. And share this with others so that they can know and they can start to focus on the healthy fats versus the fats that have been put in our foods. And if it's super processed, is it even food? Okay. And see if they find a difference in how they feel, in their health, in their weight, and everything else. All right. But I wanted to make sure that we had this conversation. Very, very important. Very, very important. If this could be the very single leading cause of all chronic disease, we need to put the word out of this potentiality so that we can now make the necessary changes, right, with how we're eating and what we're eating to either reverse or prevent what this could lead to. All right. So that concludes our live stream tonight for G.O.C.C. Fit here for the Gathering of Christ. Come here or previous times, but definitely something that, we're just scratching the surface with this particular item and substance. All right. So hopefully this is edifying to you, brothers and sisters. You will get the references shortly within the coming days. If you would like to look at the information provided tonight so you can read it on your own. And until next time, for G.O.C.C. Fit, here for the Gathering of Christ Church, I pray everybody good health in your mind, body, and spirit. God bless and God speed.